It's a glorious day at Wellness 101 with your integrative wellness and life coach, Dr. Adrienne Pinkney. Hi, everyone. It's me, Adrienne Pinkney, your integrative wellness and life coach. And I am so excited that you're here at Wellness 101 again for our wonderful topic this week, self-partnering. So I did a really cool video last week, and at the end of it, I recognized that as I was talking about partnership, I was actually, I failed to talk about partnering with yourself. And before you can partner with anybody else, you need to be able to partner with yourself first. So that is our topic for today. And as always, I'm going to start with a few quotes. Our first quote involving self-partnering is by Ntoke Shangi. Y'all. Y'all just read it off the screen. And it says, I found God in myself, and I loved her. I loved her fiercely. The second quote is by one of my earth angels, Bell Hooks, who is, she's a goddess. Bell Hooks, and this is about love, from her book, All About Love, that everybody needs to read. So if you haven't read this book, you should read it. Her quote reads, one of the best guides to how to be self-loving is to give ourselves the love we are often dreaming about receiving from others. Do not expect to receive the love from someone else you do not give yourself. And the third quote is by Melanie Tiona Evans, and she is a coach on YouTube, and I encourage you guys to check her out. She does a lot of great videos about narcissistic abuse, and she is actually where I learned about self-partnering. And her quote reads, the truth is virtually every adult wants to love and be loved. Desiring the companionship of someone as a partner is a normal and healthy life goal. This only becomes an issue when we believe that a partner can make us happy or feel fulfilled or worthy of being loved. So what is self-partnering? Well, simply put, self-partnering is basically like unconditionally and fervently loving yourself the way that God loves you, the way that we imagine that someone else would love us. And it seems like a very simple thing to self-partner, but it's actually a learned skill, one that I am practicing every day and have learned, and I'm so excited to share it with you. So the first part of self-partnering is the word self. So what does it mean to have a self? What is a self? We talk about self-esteem, self-love, and now we're talking about self-partnering. So what is self? Well, I found a cool definition online, so I'll read this definition of self. Self, a person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection or reflective action. So what does it mean to partner? Well, we talked about that last week, but to partner is taking an undertaking with others. So to self-partner is to do that very thing for yourself. That if I'm self-partnered, I am with myself, I validate myself, I affirm myself, I stand up for myself, I respect myself, and I do these things even in relationship with others. I don't expect other people to do these things for me. If they do, that's great, and they can probably stay in my life, right? But if they don't, this absolutely doesn't, I don't have to have this from them because I know how to give this to myself. I know how to compliment myself. I know how to stay with myself. So anything that anyone else does is extra. So how do we learn how to self-partner? Well, actually, we learn that we have a self from the adults in our life. And today, in talking about self-partnership, self-partnering, I'm going to talk a lot about childhood. So the first person that teaches us that we have a self is our parents. They teach us that our feelings matter when they listen to us. They teach us that our bodies matter when they invest in us, like make sure that we have nice clothes. That's how we learn that we deserve nice things. When they take us to the dentist and the doctor, We learn that we deserve care. So we learn these outside things because somebody else offers this to us first. So when I cry or when I'm hurt and someone comes to listen to me and support me in that, that's how I know that my hurt matters. That's how I know that my tears matter, my feelings matter. But if I have a parent who does the exact opposite, where if I hurt myself and I fall and my parent says, get up, you all right. Well, you better stop crying. You don't have nothing to cry about before I give you something to cry about. That is how you learn the exact opposite. My body doesn't matter. My pain doesn't matter. My feelings don't matter. And essentially, I don't matter. So a lot of times when we learn about ourselves, we're learning how we matter from the other people in our lives. And if we've had parents who taught us that our feelings don't matter, emotionally unavailable parents, emotionally abusive parents, if we've had parents who are negligent, who don't take us to the doctor, the dentist who don't give us their quality time, we learn that we don't matter. And we struggle with self-partnering in adulthood because first, we usually don't have a self. And two, we don't have a self that we know matters. So most children are naturally exploring the world and trying to figure out who they are and that they have a self. My glasses, they're so cool. I got these things at Costco. They're awesome. However, they have this really weird reflection on the screen right now, and I released that. I'm not taking my glasses off. I'm not starting this video again. So let's just keep going. So what was I talking about? How we learn how to deny ourselves. So children are constantly trying to develop a sense of themselves and figure out who they are in the world, separate and apart from their parents, separate and apart from other people, their family members, their brothers and sisters. Even though we like to be a part of a group and a unit, we also need to know who we are as individuals. In families where we are not allowed to express individual needs or have individual desire, it's there that we learn to deny the self very early. So, for example, some kids grow up in families where you're not allowed to not like certain things. That if someone made a particular dish and she had pot roast and you just like, I don't like pot roast, and your mother says, well, you eating pot roast tonight? Right? You're going to eat this pot roast and you're going to sit here until you eat this pot roast. It's battle of wills at that point. There is a learned self-denial there. For example, if there's a child that's born into a family where everybody watches scary movies and this particular child does not like scary movies, like me, I don't like to feel afraid. It's not something I enjoy. It's not fun for me. So if there's a child that doesn't like scary movies but everybody else does, in a family of emotionally immature people, they might do something like belittle that child for their particular need and say, oh, you scared. Don't be no punk. Or, it's not that big of a deal. It's not even real. Or, making them go anyway. I was actually talking to someone a while ago, a grown man whose mother forced him to watch Eyes on the Prize when he was a kid. And it scared him. It was too much for him. And he expressed to his mom that I can't watch this. Like, I don't like the way this makes me feel. And she said, well, you need to see this. You need to see this. And your uncomfortable feelings you're just going to have to sit through that. He about 40 years old and he is still hurt and upset that his mother made him sit there and watch Eyes on the Prize. It scared the hell out of him. And he just wasn't ready. So that type of self-denial can happen when we learn that our needs don't matter, when we're trying to articulate them to people who can't see or hear us or will shame us into doing what they want us to do, minimize our needs, criticize us, or make us think that something's wrong with us and make us crazy for the needs that we have. Another fun example of how we learn not to self-partner or how we learn how to give ourselves away actually occurred with me when I was a kid. So I used to be a very financially responsible kid. I always had money. I've actually met a few kids like this at the school that I work at, and I love it. These kids who can keep their birthday money for like a year, right? Kids who are savers, very financially responsible. So I used to be like that, and I just always held on to my money. And so whenever there was more money needed, whether it be needed for gas or, something that came up in the family, I mean, even at like 7, everybody knew that Adrian had some money. And so, when the family would come up to me and be like, one of my parents would say, well, Adrian, can I get $20 for gas? I would say no. Because I wanted to hold on to myself. I wanted to hold on to my money. It was my birthday money. It was my money, right? And so in moments where I would hold on to myself, I would be called selfish. Adrian, you're so selfish, right? And I would be called selfish. So the fear of being perceived as selfish and not wanting to be perceived as selfish, I would be shamed, guilted, whatever, into giving away things that I wanted to hold on to. Especially in the presence of people that I loved and when I did things that they didn't like. And as I am aware of that now and I share that experience and I listen to other people who have a hard time holding on to themselves and partnering with themselves, they too learn very early in childhood that, if what I want makes my partner angry or if what I need to do for myself makes my partner feel like I'm being selfish because I'm taking care of myself and my own needs, I have a very difficult time holding on to what I need to do for me. And that is something that's learned very early. We learn to deny our reality very early in childhood. There's always this situation, and adults talk about this quite a bit, where a child notices that their parent lied. Maybe it's like that classic Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on the door. My mama told me to tell you she's not home, right? That kind of thing. And that denial happens when the child is trying to validate their own experience, which is, Mom, you lied. Dad, you lied. Right? Because that's the truth of what just happened. And self-denial happens when you learn to not tell yourself the truth that your mind is trying to experience. So the child's mind says, Mom lied. I have understood what lying is. I noticed that a parent just did that. And if that parent is not emotionally mature, what they will either do is tell that child that, no, I didn't lie. Or they'll excuse their behavior. It is okay to lie in this circumstance. Or even worse, this is the worst one of all. You better not ever say that your mother lied, right? That one where you learn that with certain people, I can't speak the truth of my experience. If it is a mother, a father, a person in the position of power, they are not allowed to be held to the same standard of accountability that I am being held to, which is a huge problem for people who learn this as children because they actually repeat that pattern in adulthood. Many of them do. So that is how we actually learn to deny ourselves. So learning to self-partner is critical to any kind of relationship that you will ever have for the rest of your life. You have to have a self, and you have to know how to meet your own needs, validate your own truth, speak for your own experience, take care of your own emotional experience. It's so important. So before I was self-partnered, I was a mess. A cute mess, but a mess nevertheless. And one of the areas that I noticed I was not really self-partnered in resulted from my childhood issues with my father. And we're not going to make this Adrian's issues with her father, but one of the things that happened is that my father left when I was a child, and I had abandonment issues. More specifically, I had abandonment issues with men. And I was not consciously aware of that, right? Because I was just going to overachieve so much that everybody just thought she's okay. You know, her dad left and was on drugs and she turned out just fine, right? And I was on paper. But if you looked at my relationship choices, you could see that I was an absolute mess. So how my abandonment fears were controlling my life, I had not partnered with that little girl inside of me whose dad left. I had not told her that she was enough and that she was worthy of healthy love and respect. So it just really messed me up in a lot of ways. I would always kind of be moved whenever somebody acted like they wanted me. I love to feel wanted, and I really love to feel wanted by men. And that led to a whole bunch of nonsense that I don't even want to talk about on this video today. Not there yet. But I will talk about the abandonment aspect. So, because my dad left, I had deep abandonment fears. And they manifested themselves in two ways. So the first way that it would manifest itself is I would partner myself with men who I knew would not leave me. I couldn't be left again. So I would sometimes be with people I didn't even really want. I don't even know if I really wanted them, but I was just attracted to their commitment, their clinginess, their abandonment issues that made them cling and say things like, Adrian, I'll never leave you. And oh my God. Whew. That was like the best thing that little broken little girl could have heard. So that's one way that it would kind of control my life. And another way that my abandonment issues manifested is that in relationships, anytime things got bad or I felt like abandonment might occur, I don't know if my partners were consciously aware of this. Maybe they were. But if any of his language talked about like leaving, like I don't know if I want to do this or anything, I would just cling. I would bear down and I would say, all right, like what do I need to do to make this work? I just can't be left. And the funny thing is, like most of the times when they were talking about leaving, I wanted out my damn self. But I just couldn't let them leave. So, any place that you're not self-partnered is usually a huge sign of your childhood wounding. If you are triggered, anything that triggers you is usually a sign that something is wrong in childhood. And how you know that you're triggered is when you have an inappropriate or crazy response to something like real normal. So one of the ways once I started getting help, right, and started doing some more work on myself, I became more conscious around areas that I had issues. And I learned more mindfulness techniques. I got to do a video on mindfulness. Mindfulness is amazing. So this one time I called my guy and I was having a really good day, and it's very, very difficult for me to call my guy in the first place, right? And let him know that I need him for anything, because, I mean, it's hard to know. It's hard to need a man when your first man didn't hold true to his promise of love and he just left, right? So I was having this amazing day and I was feeling so up in myself that I was like, let me call this man and say hey, right? Say hey first. Let me call first. So I gave him a call and he answered the phone and he said, hey baby, I'm in the gym. Let me call you back. And he hung up fast. And crazy came up all over me. And I was about to pick up the phone and call him back and be like, why are you hanging up on me all fast? Like, don't hang up on me like that. But I didn't. So I self-partnered. I sat with myself for a minute and I said, okay, 1, I'm triggered. What is really going on? Adrian, do you believe he's at the gym? Yes, you heard the treadmill. You know he's at the gym. Like, that's not the question. Adrian, what is really wrong? So I just sat and I went inside and I said, oh my God, I don't think he's going to call me back. I said, why do you think he's not going to call you back, Adrian? Well, because you had this other guy who used to say he was going to do things and not do them, and he was going to call you back and didn't call you for years. So, I was just so... I was a mess. So I had to go home. I took myself home and I got myself in the bed and I cried for like 30 minutes and I just wept and wept about my father and how much that whole thing got to me, to the extent that I couldn't even be hung up on too fast by a man without being triggered. Like, so triggered. I was so triggered. So when my guy calls me back, he calls me. He's like, hey, babe, I just left the gym. You know, I hear him getting in the car and the door's closing. He's all in a good place. And he says, how are you? And I was like, I'm so sad. I'm crying. I'm in the bed. I'm crying about my dad. And he's like, why? And I said, well, you know, when I called you and you hung up really fast, it just triggered the hell out of me. And he was like, oh, no, babe, I didn't know that. But now that I know that you struggle in that area, this is a good partner right here. In this moment was a good partner. In this moment was a good partner. He said, well, Adrian, you know, now that I know that you struggle with that, when I hang up, I'll let you know when I'm going to call you back. And I'll call you back when I said I was going to call you back. So I'm going to hang up and say, I'm going to call you back at 5:30, and I'll call you back at 5:30. And I was like, oh, you'll do that for me? You know, and then I spent the rest of the night still sorting through my issues with my father. But when you are not self-partnered, you usually show up like a crazy person, like a desperate person, like an insecure person, needy. Any of those kind of things are a huge sign that you've got work to do on you. More specifically around your childhood. So, self-partnering is all about doing for yourself what you want somebody else to do for you. That means that you are going to provide yourself your own security first, because you don't want to go look for a relationship based on, I want somebody to take care of me. You validate your own experiences. You tell yourself that you're beautiful. You stand up for yourself. Here's some evidence that you're not self-partnered. So, first sign that you are not self-partnered is that you deny yourself. You deny yourself, you deny your body, you deny your own needs. Now, something around self-denial. Remember, I gave those examples earlier around some of the things we learn in childhood that teach us how to deny ourselves. One of the most basic ways that we learn how to deny ourselves and to ignore our own bodies is, like, for example, a lot of kids, when they get spanked. Y'all, I don't even want to do a video about spanking children. I think it's wrong on so many levels. I think it's terrible to put your hands on children for any reason. I can't even talk about it. Anyway, when children are being spanked, most children will try to protect themselves from being hit or abused in any way. So they will either put their hands up to protect themselves, they'll run away and run out the room, some kids, please, they'll beg, they'll do everything they can to protect their own bodies. And learning to deny yourself happens that moment when someone's going to hit you and somebody says, move your hands. In that moment, you are learning how to deny your basic human instinct to protect yourself. And that will show up on so many behaviors as an adult. Because when you learn to deny your body that way, you will allow other things for your body. You can learn to deny your own body. You can learn to abuse your own body with food. You can ignore your own body's needs, like when you're tired, ignore signs that you're hurt. You have learned very early not to listen to your body and not to give your body what it needs. I met this guy one time. I went on a trip with a friend and her friend, and he's a cool guy, real cool guy. And he was telling me this story about sleeping with this girl, and he was all, haughty-taughty about this. He was like, yeah, I don't really like this girl, like, I don't really like her like that, but, I could, like, put a paper bag over her head and, have sex with her. That's not what he said. I'm trying not to be too vulgar on this table. And so I was like, well, why would you do that? And so, anyway, it turns out he slept with this girl. He sleeps with this girl that he doesn't like. And he's telling me this story, and I said to him, well, why do you sleep with people you don't like? And he was like, well, it's just a thing. And I was like, but if you sleep with people that you don't like, that you think have no value, Do you recognize that you're there? You're participating. So I sleep with people I don't like means I don't have any value. My body doesn't have any value. It's not even that she's not worth anything. I'm not worth anything. So my question is not really what's wrong with her, but what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Um, Childhood issues. So that brother, he has some work he needs to go do. Another way that people learn how to deny their needs, deny their self, deny their body, deny their needs. So I used to deny my needs quite a bit. I found that, or I thought that my strength, my power was in showing up, like I didn't need anything. So sometimes I used to come to relationships with my partner and I'd want to talk about something I needed. Baby, we need to talk. And as soon as I started talking to him about what I felt, or whatever it was that I needed, whenever his needs became present, I would start to take care of his needs more than mine. I did not know how to have needs for myself and let somebody else have their needs in the same space without completely giving myself away. I didn't know how to do that. But as a child, I learned very early how to take care of other people. I was always affirmed for my ability to be so good in doing things for others, folding all the clothes and changing other people's sheets and doing all these nice things for other people. So when it came time for me to have needs, I thought that having needs was selfish, or my needs didn't matter as much, or here's a crazy thought I had. If I take care of everybody else's needs first, that eventually they'll get to mine. So I had to learn to partner with myself, which means that I understand that other people will have needs, and so do I. So even in the face of somebody else's needs, somebody else's experience, somebody else's desires, mine still matter too, and that this relationship has to meet both of our needs, or it can't happen. Another sign that you're not self-partnered is when you are amazed by someone else doing something for you or saying something to you that you've never heard before, or that you don't offer yourself. Some people have whole entire marriages that are based off of, he told me he'd never leave me. Some men are married and partnered with women that they don't even like because she's the first person who told me I was beautiful. Or she listens to me. Or she lets me know that I matter. Something like that, right? Well, it's really, really nice. And it's really nice to be attracted to certain things about people. But when we choose relationships from our broken places, we can be so attracted to this one thing that someone did or said that we miss all the other stuff that person comes with. So even though he said that he'll never be irresponsible, does he do things that you don't like? Does he not listen to what you need? And even though she's the first girl who ever told you that she's attractive or that you're attractive, is she faithful to you? Is she respectful to you? Does she do the things that you need her to do to be in relationship with you as well? Because if you still there from your broken place, if she the only person who ever sweated me before, you're probably choosing the wrong relationship. And that's a place where you really need to self-partner. So it's not just that I'm a big girl and he's the first person that told me that my body was beautiful. You need to go tell yourself that your body is beautiful. And when he says that your body is beautiful, the only thing you have to say is thank you. Because all he's doing is acknowledging what you already know. He is not validating something that you need to be validated externally. Self-partnering is about doing it for you first. Another part of a sign that you're not self-partnered is when you learn to deny your inner voice. So God is always speaking. God is ever present. Ever present. God is always speaking. And God speaks very loudly and very clearly to those who seek him. Very, very loud. God sends direct messages. And anything that God has for you, he'll tell you. So you don't have to worry about nobody ever saying, God told me to tell you. No. So anything that God has for you, God will tell you. Anyway, that's not. So denying your God voice is a sign that you are not self-partnered. If you are in a career path because somebody else told you that you should be a doctor, or your mom or somebody else had that for you, if that is not your spiritual calling, if that's not what you're supposed to be doing with your life, you will suffer. Only because you are not living in your purpose. Learning to deny yourself and constantly denying yourself allows you to go in the wrong direction more than you recognize. When you're walking down a street on a particular day and it just don't feel right, if you walk down that same street every day, but on this day something says go the other way, and you don't listen to that, like, that is a huge sign that you're not self-partnered, that you don't even know how to listen to yourself, the direct messages that God gives just to you. And you don't need to check in with anybody else and say, what do you think about going on this street that day? Or how do you feel about what I should be doing with my life? No, you need to close your eyes, go within, sit in silence, meditate, and get some mindfulness done, and figure out what it is that you need to do. If you are constantly looking for external validation as far as the God purposes, overall purposes of your life, you are not self-partnered, and you need to fix that. Another sign that you are not self-partnered is when you have to seek external validation for your reality. It's a really important skill to have in life, especially because, unfortunately, there are narcissists in the world. And my name is Adrienne Pinkney, and I am a recovering codependent. So I've done a lot of work around figuring out how not to be so codependent. I have a narcissistic parent, and I had to learn how not to show up that way. So also something else to tell you about me, I'm a recovering codependent. I'm also a 12-stepper. So I am a member of Al-Anon, and I go to a specific group for the adult children of alcoholics because I didn't recognize how growing up in a house with an alcoholic and a drug addict really affected my thoughts and behaviors about myself. So I had to go and unlearn some things and then learn some new things. But one of the things that I had to learn is how not to seek external validation for your reality. So my father is an interesting character. He's a brilliant, deeply troubled man. And my dad was talking this one time, and he's real, how do I say this? He's real righteous. My daddy knows more than everything about everybody and everything, and he's going to be louder than you, and if he cannot out-talk you or outsmart you, he will become violent. That's who my father is. So sad. But that's the truth of my experience with him. So anyway, my dad was talking, and I noticed that he did this a few times. He was talking about other people in our family, right? And he was talking about other people's kids, and he was like, well, my kids weren't raised like that. And he's all on his high horse. And, my kids don't do that because my kids won't raise like that and blah, blah, blah. And it was really bothering me because I was like, but my father wasn't around. So he don't really know how I was raised because he wasn't there. But he's talking like he knows how I was raised. So my dad did that a few times on a few different experiences, and every time it just made me so uncomfortable. I couldn't figure out why. I just couldn't say, Dad, like, you don't know how I was raised. My mother raised me. You didn't raise me. So finally, on this one particular day, I was just like, what is my fear? His violence, his ego being crushed? I don't know. So I said, my dad was going off on how everybody else's kids ain't right. And he says, well, my kids weren't raised like that. And I said, well, Dad, you don't really know how I was raised because my mother raised me, and like you weren't there. You don't know how I was raised. And he said, in true narcissistic fashion, my dad says, well, yeah, I guess you need to go talk to somebody about that. And that was it. That was the extent of the conversation. had I needed my father's validation for my own experience with him, I could have believed that. I could have sat there and said to myself and allowed him to continue to say to himself and others a truth that was not quite true. A lie, right? A lie that wasn't true. To go back to that little child that learns not to tell the truth, especially about their parents. I could have come to that from that very fearful place where, no, like, I don't really tell the truth about you because you're an adult, or because you're father, or because you're mother. But no, the truth about you is this, and you can deal with that from there. I actually had another experience when I had to hold on to my own reality. I was working in a school and I had an irate parent curse. She was cussing and it was kids in the hallway. So I had to stop this lady. I said, excuse me, miss. I said, I know you're upset. Let's just go inside this office right now and talk about it because you cussing in front of these children. And she said, oh, no, I didn't. I didn't curse. I said, well, yes, you did. You just said, and you just said that. And she said, well, there were no children in the hallway. And I said, well, there was a whole little hallway, the whole little group of little chickadee children going through the hall who looked at you like you crazy, because you are. And yeah, and I just had to just go ahead and validate my own reality. I didn't need her permission. I didn't need her to tell me what had just happened. I didn't need her to tell me who was there. Actually, I saw that she was denying the truth of what just happened and that I was dealing with a crazy person. I don't want to call her crazy. A person who is in the process of doing her work, if she so chooses. Maybe she's just deeply unconscious. Maybe that's a nice way to put it. But that I didn't need her to validate for me what I already knew. A lot of times people can stay in the wrong relationship because they're waiting for somebody else to apologize for something that they did and somebody else saying, I didn't even do it. And you waiting for them to acknowledge that for you. You don't have to wait for that. Someone who you already have a God knowing that they're lying and that you're staying waiting to find out what the lie is, or questioning your own reality, or trying to collect data, all that kind of crazy that people do when they don't know how to just validate themselves and affirm themselves. You have an inner knowing. You have your own eyes, your own ears, your own bodied experience where you know what happened to you. You do not need anybody else's permission to say that this is what it was, or that it was awful, or this is how it felt, or how it made you feel, or whatever. When you are self-partnered, you know how to validate yourself. Specifically, validating your experiences. Very important. Because if you're waiting for external forces, people outside of you to tell you that it happened or that it was that bad, or some people waiting for parents to acknowledge things that happened that they will never acknowledge. Some people are standing in relationships waiting for somebody to say they was wrong or they did something that they ain't never going to say they did take no accountability for. Why are you waiting for that? You need to go ahead and self-partner with yourself and validate your experiences yourself. More evidence that you are not self-partnered is number 5, that you show up as if you have no needs or that you don't have reciprocal relationships. And I used to do this one too. But that means that you ride at 100% for people who riding at about 20 for you. If you're the one in all your friendships or your family relationships that everybody can rely on, or you're the one who's always fixing things and you're always rescuing other people, and doing all these things for them, and you're noticing that when it's time for somebody to take care of you or do something like that for you, you're not really finding that. That's a problem. What's that story? Y'all remember that story about the hen who baked the bread? And she was baking all this bread. And she asked the cow and who else lives on the farm? And the pig and everybody else to come help. And they all said no. And then when the bread was baked, they all want to come eat some bread, right? If she was not self-partnered, she would have gave them some bread. Hello. I went to church today. Somebody said that. Hello. And I just did it. Yeah. If you're not self-partnered, you'll be the one who gives yourself away. See, See, the little hen, she told them no. Y'all didn't help do none of this. Y'all don't get none of this. No. Right? Self-partnering is having reciprocal relationships. So that's being able to look at all the relationships in your life and say, this person is about an 80%. They ride for me about 80%. I'm going to match them at 80%. This person rides for me about 10%. I'm going to match them at about 10%. And I have a few people who are my 100%ers that I just go all day for. I know I got her every time and she got me every time. So it's no question there, right? That's how my relationship is with my brothers. Yeah, so you have to be really clear about who are your people that you really ride for and the people that you don't. But if you are not self-partnered, you don't value yourself enough to know that you deserve to give love and to receive love. That you should support and give to other people, and that other people should support and give to you too. And that relationships that are not equally reciprocal or reciprocal in any way cannot happen, and they don't work. They're not symbiotic relationships. They're the other kind where one little parasite like leeches off of the other one till it dies, and that one is all stronger and the other thing is dead. I don't know what kind of relationship that is, but y'all took science. You know what I'm talking about. All in all, self-partnering is about being honest with yourself. It's about focusing on your own experience. It's about loving yourself, validating yourself, giving yourself what you need first, providing for yourself, protecting yourself, respecting yourself. And what does it mean? Like, what does it really mean to love yourself? Because I recognize it in this video. I talked all about all the ways that you can know when you're not self-partnered. It's because you ain't loving yourself. So next week, we will talk about how to love yourself. But before we go and do that, I want to give you all some homework. So here's your homework. Next time you are in any difficult situation, whether it be emotional, financial, spiritual, whatever it is, I want you to go take care of it yourself. Go take care of your own needs. Go hold yourself when you cry. Don't get on the phone and have to call all your girlfriends and have them listen to you. Listen to yourself. Next time your money ain't right, figure out how you can rescue yourself. Validate yourself. When you're going out and you're waiting for him to say, hey, you look so great or whatever, don't be all pressed about that. Already have done that to yourself, for yourself, to the extent that when you go out, anything that he offers or that she offers is extra. Because I already did it. I already took care of myself. So once you've done this, you will not be shocked or surprised when someone else offers you kindness or love or support, because you'll know that you deserve such gifts, such kindness, such tenderness, such support, and such validation. And you'll know that you deserve it because you give it to yourself each and every day. Subscribe to my channel. Share this with your friends. I look forward to talking with you next week about self-love. In the meantime, be well. Be light. Be free. Be noticed. Be peaceful. Be authentic. Be super. Be well.